Hello, my fellow investors. In this part of the series, I'm going to go through most of the Q&A I had with the investors relations. I'm going to try to concentrate as much as possible. It shouldn't be too long. But first, I have to explain why I called up the company. It's not like every time I do research on a company, I call up the investors relations. So the reason for this was that I had some concerns about the future of Texas Roadhouse. And this concern came from a simple research that I did, is that I saw in an interview with Ken Taylor that he said that they're looking to open up in locations that have like 60 to 80,000 population. And I knew that all their restaurants are standalone places and not in the malls. So I had a simple question. If they're not opening up in malls and they're only doing standalone locations, and there's only like 600 cities in the United States that have such a big population, where is their growth going to come from? And another thing that concerned me was that I saw in the videos on YouTube that they had the locations in Dubai and Kuwait and Asia and Middle East. They had also the malls. So why were they doing malls outside the United States and not in the United States? So that's why I called them up. And if already calling them up, so I'll do a whole list of questions. So I'm just going to read the questions and the answers. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button and to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. So my first question, is Texas Roadhouse planning on opening up locations in malls? If not, why are you opening up in malls in Dubai and the rest of Asia and the Middle East? So what he answered me was like this. We're not planning on opening up in malls because of the malls will force us to serve lunch, and we don't want to do that. So that already we saw in the video with Ken Taylor. They rather do only dinners, only in a few places they have also lunches. So they're not planning on opening up malls in the United States. So why are they doing it in Asia? So basically what he explained to me is that the culture, the way it works in Asia, in Dubai and in Kuwait, is over there it works. So I didn't exactly understand the whole issue, why over there it does work. But he told me that over there they do also lunches, not only dinners like they do in the United States. But maybe it's the way it's built over there. I don't know. I didn't exactly understand. But my takeaway was from everything that he tried to explain to me was that they're very, very responsible and very, very conservatives. And they know what works for them in the United States, the way they want it to work. That's what they're going to do. All the locations outside the United States are more or less all franchise. So maybe it's because their franchisees figured out how to do it outside the United States. I don't know exactly what. But in the United States, they're doing mainly only dinners, and that doesn't work in malls. And outside the United States, they're doing in malls and also doing lunches, and over there, it does work. So I didn't exactly understand it, but that's more or less what he tried to explain to me. The second question is the annual report from 2004, it says that Texas Roadhouse sees an opportunity to open 800 locations in the United States. What's its plans as of today? So what he said was that we thought we could open up to 600, 700 new locations. And now we see that we can open up to 800 to 900 in the United States. So we'll explain this on further. So my next question was, I saw Ken Taylor say in an interview that Texas Roadhouse looks for cities with a population of 80,000, and they're going down to even populations of 60,000. From my research, I found that there's around 600 cities with 80,000 population. So how do you expect 800 locations if you're not opening up in malls? So what he answered me was like this. We open more than one location per big city. He said, let's say where they're located in Indiana, they have, I think he told me 4 or 5 restaurants in the same city. And we also plan to go down as low as a population of 40,000. So although there aren't 800 to 900 cities with a population of 80,000, they could do a few locations in one big city. And they're also going down in the sides of the cities opening up in. Okay, the next question is, in smaller locations, do you open a smaller restaurant than the usual prototype, or you do the same exact thing? So he told me it was like this. Now, in the beginning, they were doing smaller prototypes in smaller cities, but eventually we saw that there's no need to open up smaller prototypes. He said that the demand was, even in the smaller cities, was so big that they saw there's no point in doing smaller prototypes in the smaller cities. He said that the usual big prototypes were also great in the smaller cities. Next question. How many Texas Roadhouse do you think you can open globally, and where do you see the growth coming from? So when he says like this, we see a couple of hundred at least in the United States and also globally. So in the United States, he said they see like 800 to 900 locations. But globally, they think it could be at least a couple of hundreds. He can't say it's going to be in the thousands, but at least a couple of hundreds. That's what they see. We don't have any specific number. And he went on to explain to me a lot about the global, the possibility in the global international locations. So he said South Korea is very, very promising. And he said that Brazil, they didn't even start in Brazil yet. And he said that he thinks that there's one steakhouse that has, he says he thinks like up to 60 locations in Brazil. And he thinks that Brazil is very, very promising. Okay, the next question. Why was your first global location in Dubai? Doesn't Canada make more sense? So, well, the reason I asked this question was they were inside the United States the whole time. The first global location to open up was in Dubai. Doesn't it make more sense to open up in Canada? It's like right near, it's the same language, it's close to each other. Why did they go to Dubai? Why not in Canada? So he gave me a very long answer. I'm just going to try to concentrate it. He said like this: we looked into Canada at the beginning in the past, and we even reached out to a few new partners, but the cost of building Canada was very, very expensive. So they left it alone. They didn't continue on. He said it's been a while since they looked into Canada, and maybe they'll check it out again. And my next question was, why not in Europe? Okay, so you're not doing in Canada, why go all the way to the Middle East and Asia? Why not open up in Europe? You can open up in England. You can open up in a lot of places that have a very similar culture than to the United States. So why not in Europe? So what he said was like this. Again, he explained to me very long, but I'm going to try to concentrate it. He said the Texas Royalties concept doesn't work in Europe. This kind of culture that they have there, it doesn't work, the Texas Royalties concept. And he said this also about Europe and also about Canada. He said never say never. So it's not as if they took it out of consideration. It's just that right now, the way you can look at it is very simple. Their global locations are mainly from franchisees. And the franchisees, they started in Dubai and Kuwait and Taiwan, Philippines, all these places. And they're continuing on to go over there. And why start something new when there's still so much potential in all these other places that it's working great for them? So right now they're focused on where it's working for them right now. They don't see any reason to start doing something totally new in Europe or in Canada. And everything new has a lot of new problems and new things to figure out. So they have something that's working now. There's a lot of growth potential still there. They don't see any reason to start going into Europe and Canada. Okay, my next question was, why did you open a new concept of Bubbas instead of modifying a Texas Royalties concept that will work in Europe? So basically it's the same question. So if we'll look at it very simple, Texas Roadhouse came to a point where it stopped being a major growth company and it's becoming more modest growth. So it's pretty simple to understand that they opened up two new concepts of Bubbas and Jaggers because they're looking for new vehicles to get more growth. So basically what I said, why do a new concept of Bubbas, which is totally new concept, instead of just taking the Texas Roadhouse and making maybe a few changes that should work in Europe? So he gave me the same answer. This is working for us, and globally, the Texas Roadhouse is working globally. We don't see any reason to start doing something new in Europe. And Bubbas is in the United States. The United States, that's where they are. That's where their bread and butter is. That's where they know how everything works. That's where they have all the management. They don't see any reason to go into new cultures and new countries, which could be a lot of new problems they have to figure out. So basically, my takeaway was from all of the conversation was that they're very, very responsible. They're very, very conservative. They're looking to grow, but they're not willing to take too much risk. They're doing it slow and steady. You could see also from Ken Taylor's interviews, I heard it from him again and again. You could see in the annual reports, they're looking to be very conservative. They want to grow as much as possible, but they're not willing to take too much risk. That's more or less a takeaway I got out of the whole conversation about all these things. Okay, so in the last annual report, they said that they're not accepting any more franchisees domestically for Texas Roadhouse. So I asked them why not. So what he told me was like this: we don't need any more franchisees in the United States. The company has enough money to do it alone. There's no reason for them to do it through franchisees. They can earn more money by opening up new locations by themselves instead of doing it through franchisees. But the global Texas Roadhouse, that's over there, they are willing to take franchisees because over there they're not working globally. Only the franchisees. So over there they are willing to give it out to franchisees. But inside the United States, the company has enough money. They don't have any reason to do it with franchisees. But the Bubbas and the Jaggers, they are accepting new franchisees, although they didn't have any closed agreement yet. Everything, it's still working out all the details about the franchisees and Bubbas and Jaggers. Okay, next question. Why does Texas Roadhouse have today less franchises than 20 years ago? If you can see in the annual reports back in 2004, they had over 100 franchises. Today went down very much, and it's mainly globally. So I asked him, why is the franchise going down? So I thought they were closing them down. So he told me, no, the company doesn't have less locations. It's just that the company is buying back the franchises from the franchisees. He told me that in my 15 years in the company, maybe 3 or 4 locations closed. He said he's not sure the exact number, but he said hardly any locations got closed down. So the company is buying back the locations from the franchisees. And we'll get into that later on. Why is the company doing that? Okay, next question. How many locations are you planning on opening each year? So he gave me a pretty long answer for this, and I'll basically try to concentrate it into a simple sentence. He said that more or less they're trying to open up 30 new locations each year. And he explained to me that 30 locations, it's much easier for them to locate 30 locations a year and to find good management for 30 locations a year. And this would include also Bubbas and also Texas Roadhouse. He said more than that, maybe the number would go up more than 30 a year, but that's more or less the round number. The ballpark is around 30 locations each year in the United States. Okay, the next question is, in what currency do you get your royalties from international locations? So that's also another interesting thing, because if they're getting the royalties 40% of the gross sales, 4% of the gross sales from the restaurant that's selling. If the restaurant is selling in a different currency, they should be getting 4% of that currency. So I asked him, what currency do you get it? It could be a big loss in when you transact in transactions. So he said that they get it in dollars, but he doesn't know exactly how it works, but he knows they get it in dollars. If you could see also in the annual reports, in the comprehensive income is not a big change in the currency translations. Okay, so then I went on to the concept of Bubba 33. So my first question is exactly what's Bubba's concept? What's unique about Bubba's? What is it different than anything else? So basically, he told me they're working on to build a new concept which is like family friendly, but plus it has a sport theme. So he said let's say a kid comes back from a little league game. He said they want to make a combination of a Texas Roadhouse and a Buffalo Wing, something like a combination of these two concepts together. Next question: why did you open a new concept of Bubbas and Jaggers if you still see an opportunity to open a few more hundreds of Texas Roadhouse? So this is a very simple question. Why do you start doing now something new? So he told me like this: we wanted to start a new concept of the future growth in time, not when we reach our Texas Roadhouse limits. He said, now we still have a huge potential growth in Texas Roadhouse. Now is the time to start doing the new concepts, not when we come to a time and place where we already finished all our growth. Now every new concept takes a few years to start growing it and to make a brand recognition and to understand it exactly how to work it out. He said now is a good time to start the new concept, not when we're already running out of time. Okay, the next question: so who is Bubba's biggest competitor? And also to try to understand what's Bubba's concept, I asked him, do they do birthdays and line dancing in Bubba's? So he said that they don't do line dancing and birthdays in Bubba's. And he said the main competitors are like Ford Garage and Buffalo Wings and a few more. I think the feeling that I got from him is that they're still trying to figure out exactly what's Bubba's concept. Not that they're trying to figure out what's the concept, but they don't. It seems to me they didn't wrap their head exactly what's Bubba's exactly. That's my feeling, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Okay, next question. Are you looking for Bubba's to be conceived by consumers as one concept of Texas Roadhouse, or do you want them to be separate? So I want to understand, are they trying to make a totally new concept, like in DRI, like Red Lobster, when they had Red Lobster and Olive Garden? It's two different concepts, right? They both belong to the same company, so that's what I want to know. Are you looking to make a totally different concept that, okay, it belongs to the same company, it's under one umbrella, but it has nothing to do with each other? So that's what he told me. He said, we're not looking to be one concept, but we don't care if people know the Bubbas belongs to Texas Roadhouse. We'll be very happy people know that the legendary food and the legendary service also is coming to Bubbas. Also, the Bubbas is doing all the food from scratch and everything, but they're not looking for it to be one concept. But he told me that was my next question, is the Texas Roadhouse gift card be accepted in Bubbas and Jaggers? So he said that there are Texas Roadhouse gift cards, and on one side it says Texas Roadhouse, and on the other side it says Bubbas and Jaggers, and it's accepted in all their different restaurants. Okay, next question. Why did you open a new concept of Bubbas and Jaggers instead of buying a new concept? So this question, actually, I never got the answer to it, because I asked him a different question, and he thought this is what I'm asking him. And he asked me, are you asking me why we didn't buy a concept? And I told him no. I'm asking you something else. And then we never got back to answer this question. But I think the answer to that is very, very simple. I mean, you can see the Texas Roadhouse is very, very stable. They're very, very low risk. And let's say what I showed you in the other parts of the series, what happened at the other restaurants when they bought new concepts, it could really ruin a company. And I really understand why they're not trying to buy a new concept and just trying to create a new concept. So this is my feeling. I don't know. We never came around to answer this question, but I think that'll be a pretty simple answer. Okay, the next question. The average Bubbas is more expensive than the average Texas Roadhouse, and it's less profitable. So why are you opening up more Bubbas and not concentrating on Texas Roadhouse? If you can see in the last annual reports, the average Texas Roadhouse cost them around $6.3 million. And the average Bubbas that cost them the last year was around $7.3 million. And the income is a lot lower. So why are they opening up more Bubbas? No, I don't mean more than Texas Roadhouse, but I'm saying why are they concentrating on opening up more Bubbas when it costs them more money and they're getting less profits from it? So what he told me was like this. All new things, they take time until they reach the full potential. And we want to start now the new concept when we still have time for the next, for Texas Roadhouse. Of course, they're trying to figure out a lot of things and how to make it click better. And it seems to me that they didn't fully understand exactly what Bubbas is, in the meaning that they're still working on it. It's still something that's being, I'm not saying they don't understand. I'm saying they're still working on it. It's not a finished product. Maybe they'll still make changes to it. It seems to me that they're not fully close exactly what it is. He started to explain to me that once Texas Roadhouse and 20 years ago was also totally different and was less profitable. All the new things, it takes time until everything starts clicking, until everything works, until you figured out everything. So that's why maybe now it's costing more money, it's less profitable. But you told me one thing, if you have a location that's giving you in $110,000 on a weekly basis, it's still amazing concept. So it's not as if, Bubbas is a failure. It's a huge success. Just compared to Texas Roadhouse, that has 30 years of experience, so it's still taking time to reach its full potential. Okay, next question. How many Bubbas do you plan to open in the United States? So again, he came to me and said, we don't know anything for sure, but he says, if we didn't think that they have at least a couple of hundreds of potential locations, they wouldn't have started it. So this is very interesting because if they saw Texas Roadhouse only 800 to 900 locations in the United States, and they see another few hundred of Bubbas, so why couldn't they take the same places that wanted to do Bubbas and do it to Texas Roadhouse? But they're competing with each other. It's not, you can't just open up another location of the same exact thing in the same place. But to open up two different restaurants with two different concepts in the same city, I guess it works better. Like every city has tons of restaurants. You can't open up in a small place 10 Texas Roadhouse. But you can open up one Texas Roadhouse and one Bubbas. Okay, the next question. Are you planning to take Bubbas global? So, again, they said that they don't have, they're still in the United States. They're not there yet. They're not figuring out what they're going to be doing internationally. They're still concentrated in the United States. The whole company's operations in the United States. Everything that's global is mainly their franchisees. They said that they're not there yet, but he said, of course, everything is possible. Okay, next question. Why is Texas Roadhouse not taking new franchisees with the Texas Roadhouse concept, but they're willing to take new franchisees with Bubbas and Jaggers? So again, I didn't ask this question straight away, but out of all the questions I asked him, so mainly what I understood from him was that the company wants to do all their capital allocations in low risk opportunities. The more risky stuff, like the new Bubbas and the new Jaggers, which they still don't know what's the future, what's going to be with them, over there they're leaving it more to the franchisees, let's say the international locations. But whatever is working for them and they know exactly how to operate it, that's leaving for the company. So all the U.S. locations, they're leaving for the company. The new Bubbas, the new Jaggers, the Texas Roadhouse International, that they're doing for the franchisees. Sorry. Okay, here's another interesting question. So, I saw in an interview with Ken Taylor that he said that he came up with the idea of the Bubbas. Like he said, what if happens if 5 guys in, I think he said Chile, got married and had a kid? So basically, we're thinking of opening up a totally new concept that's a big mixture of a few concepts. So let's say in Bubbas, they're doing also burgers and also pizza and also all different kinds of things. So I asked him, isn't it complicated for the kitchen? When you have a restaurant that's doing only burgers, it's easy. If you're doing only pizza, it's easy. But if you're doing also this and also this and also that, isn't it complicated to run a kitchen like that? And basically, I was asking him, what if it's such a great idea to do a restaurant that has full of different things mixed up with each other, then why didn't anyone come up with this idea to do it? So probably there's a reason for that, because it's problematic to do such a kind of a restaurant. So basically what he told me, he answered me, is it is complicated and they have no assurance that it's going to work. And he told me they're still trying to figure it out, and they're taking it very slow, and that's why we're not going to be seeing Texas Roadhouse opening every year 30 new locations of Bubbas. They're still working on it. But so far, it's profitable. I mean, they started almost a decade ago, but he said that as for now, the whole Bubbas segment is already profitable. They've in the annual reports already bring in the Bubbas earnings. Okay, next question. What's going to be the royalty fee for Bubbas? So over here also he said we don't have anything specific, and it might change from franchise to franchise. But he said more or less it's probably going to be in the same ballpark like Texas Roadhouse. Another question is Bubbas going to be open for lunch? So over there he said also at the beginning they worked a little bit differently. He said so far in all the new places, I think he said all the new places, but in most of the new places they opened up for lunch. So this is also something interesting because Texas Roadhouse is only dinner. If now they're opening up a new concept that could bring in revenue also from lunch, that's great. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button and to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Okay, now a few questions about Jaggers. So who is Jaggers' biggest competitor? I want to try to understand like who are they competing against. So he told me it's basically any drive-through. So they're not looking to make Jaggers a certain special kind of concept. He said they're just trying to make like a fast food chain. Also, they want to have the fresh food. They want it to have a legendary service, but as a fast food, not as a casual dining. He told me it's Chick-fil-A, it's anyone, all these companies, they're all competing with them. He said there's still Winski not even looking at Jaggers, but he said basically any drive-through would be a competition for Jaggers. Okay, next question: is Jaggers profitable already? So again, in the annual reports, they would bring in data from Bubbas, but they're not bringing anything about Jaggers. So I want to know what's going on with Jaggers. So he told me like this. He told me that the entire concept of Jaggers as a whole unit is still not profitable because they still have tons of expenses of opening up new locations. But he told me that the older locations, the ones that they opened up the earliest, are already cash flow positive. So he told me it is cash flow positive, but it's still, as a whole segment, is still not profitable because they're using a lot of capital to open up new locations, and a lot of things are still figuring it out. But the older locations are already cash flow positive. That's also a great thing to know. Okay, next question. How many Jaggers do you plan on opening up in the United States? So again, he told me it's still new. They don't have any idea yet. They're still trying to figure it out as it is, as a new concept. To be planning on the future, then they're not there yet. Okay, so the big question is how many Jaggers are you planning to open up in the near future? Don't tell me what we're going to do in the next 10, 20 years. What's the close future? So he said that in 2023, they're planning to open up on 3 new company locations and 3 new franchise locations. So that's also good. So they're going from 4, another 6. That's double. It's very nice. That's the plan. I don't know what's going to be actually. The next question is, are you planning on opening Jaggers in malls? So again, Texas Roadhouse, they don't want to do in malls. Bubbas, they're not doing it in malls. So what about Jaggers? It's a fast food. So he said no. He said it's not out of the question, but they're mainly trying to do it as a drive-through, not as inside malls. Okay, so if you saw in the last annual reports, they're looking for a new vehicle of growth. They had a few new ideas. One of them was that they start doing. They opened up Texas Roadhouse butcher shop. So basically, you can order online. You can even check it up on Amazon. You can order online Texas Roadhouse steaks, and it's delivered to your house. And so I understood the company is looking for new vehicles of growth, new vehicles of revenue. So I just wanted to get a small understanding of what's going on over there. So and also did the new margaritas. They're selling margaritas. They're margaritas in all different locations. So I asked him, is any of your new segments, the butcher shop and the margaritas, is it profitable yet? So he said, so far nothing is profitable. He said these initiatives are very, very low investments. And so far the returns also nothing major. He said he can't say there was any major success or anything that was major unsuccessful. So far, everything is like mediocre. It was a very small investment, and the returns aren't great. And there's still, of course, if it's going to work, great. If not, okay, nothing happened. So that's basically the answer to the next question. Why did they start these new initiatives? So same answer. They're looking for a new growth. If it would work, great. If not, nothing major. I want to understand more the Texas Roadhouse butcher shop. So I asked him, is it a separate business or are they planning on turning each location into a butcher shop? So basically, why to open up a new segment? Just take your meat cutters, they're anyways cutting steaks, and make them cut even more steaks, and people could order from them steaks. So he said that in COVID, they did that. That basically people were able to order steaks from the local restaurants and take them home and make them in the house. But now he said it's a totally different private segment. It's working totally by itself. It's an e-commerce. I even understood from him that they have an outside company that's making all their steaks. It's not even taking their meat cutters from their restaurants. They have a company that it's branded as a Texas Roadhouse Steaks, and they're selling it on e-commerce. So another question I asked him, so I understand why people would want to buy the margaritas. You know, people don't really make margaritas at the house, but butchers, there's tons of butchers all over. They could buy steaks. So why do people want to buy their steaks online when they could just buy it for much cheaper from a local butcher? And I went to check up reviews on Amazon. I saw the amazing reviews. People really like their product, but it's very, very expensive. So again, he said, we'll try to see if it works. If it works, good. If not, not. So a few more questions that I had was to try to understand the business model. So as I said before, they hardly have any locations that close, but they're buying back a lot of locations from their franchisees. So there's a very simple logical question. To open up a new location costs $6 million, more or less. When a person who is running a location for a franchise for 10, 15 years, and it's earning a lot of money, he wouldn't be selling it to the company for $5 million. He'd be selling it for much more expensive. So I asked him, is it smart for the company to use the capital allocations to buy back franchises at a huge amount instead of just opening up new locations at a much lower level of investment? So basically what I'm asking is why is the company buying back the locations from the franchises? They could use the same money to open up new locations, and they could open up much more locations. So what he told me is like this. He told me it's probably, in the end, it's probably more expensive to buy back locations from franchisees, but he said it's a lower risk. He says when you have a franchise who for 15 years is working with them, they know all the data for the last 15 years. They know all the history. They know exactly what they're buying. And when you open up a new location, you could do all the modeling in the world, but in the end, you can never be sure it's going to work. He said it's a much smarter business decision to buy back a place which you know all the data from the past 15 years than to open up a new location. He said that's one. He said two, the company has enough money to do both of them. It's not as if we're buying back locations from franchisees, and that's instead of opening up a location. He says we're doing both of them. We're also buying back the franchisees, and we're also opening up new locations. It's coming one on each other. They work hand in hand. So that's a great answer. I really like the answer that they're very, very steady. They're very, very low risk. That I think that's something that shows a lot about the company. Okay, next question. In 2004, you owned about half of your locations. It was like something like 50 and 50. And so like they owned like 50 of the locations and they leased the land of the other 50, more or less. I don't remember the exact numbers. But if you see in the last annual reports, like most of the locations are leased. So I asked them a simple question. Texas Roadhouse is very stable, and they're not closing a lot of locations. Isn't it cheaper just to buy the land than to lease the land? If it would have been a company that's opening and closing the whole time, I understand. If it would have been a company that each location cost a few $100,000 to open up, like fast food, I'll also understand there's no point in buying out the land. But it's such a huge expense. It's such a huge invest. Every new location is a few millions of dollars of investment. Why isn't it worth it for them to buy the land, and in the end it'll be much cheaper and throughout the years than to lease the lands? So what he answered me was like this. He said, probably in the long run it will be cheaper to buy the land, but every time you buy the land, you're investing a lot of money now, and it'll take you years until you cover your investment. He said, but when we leased the places, so we want basically to make as much of the capital allocation to go into the business, not into real estate. He told me, we're not real estate agents. We're not in the real estate business. We're in the restaurant business. We want to use as much capital in the restaurant business, not in the land. He said we have enough land. We're not looking for more land. And he said it might be cheaper in the long run, but now if you want to invest $20 million in a location, or you can invest $5 million in a location and use the same $20 million instead of buying the land, just do it in 4 different locations. He said it's better for them. It's more, as for now, to use all the capital in new restaurants. He said also that it's very hard, it's very weird to buy the land today. There aren't a lot of people who are willing to sell the land. And even when it does happen that they want to sell the land, so a lot of times what they'll do, they'll buy the land and then they'll sell it back to someone else, maybe even do a little bit of arbitrage on it, and they'll and they'll lease it back. So they'll buy it from the owner, sell it to another guy, and do a lease with him. He said it's worth it for them as a business to invest as much capital inside the restaurant business and not inside the real estate business. I can't really say that I agree with it, but I understand them. It's like, don't get into the real estate business of it. Just be very concentrated on your restaurant business. I understand it. I maybe would have taken things a little bit differently, but I understand them. Okay, so my last question was, where do they see the main growth coming from? So they're doing Texas Roadhouse in the United States, internationally. They started Bubbas, they started Jaggers. Where do they see the main growth coming from the next decade? So he told me it's for sure Texas Roadhouse. He said Bubbas is still new, Jaggers, they still don't know what's going to be with it. He said it's definitely Texas Roadhouse. There's no reason not to open up 30 locations each year. So for the next decade, it's probably for sure going to be from Texas Roadhouse. So now that we understood more or less the future of the company, now it'll be easy for us to try to analyze at what price to buy this company, and that will be the next video. I'll do a current analysis. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button and to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.